So as Executive Vice President of Original Content for CBS All Access, in just 2 years, Julie McNamara has grown All Access's original content 500%, bringing in The Good Fight, Strange Angel, No Activity, $1, and of course Star Trek Discovery, and soon to be added to the list, The Twilight Zone with Jordan Peele. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Julie McNamara. Did you always know that you wanted to be an executive at a network?
That, I think, was the cool thing about that assistant job, is I could see in the people who were those executives a job that looked really exciting to me. And you know, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do in the business, but that was a good vantage point from my cubicle at that time to see people around me. It included Tom Sherman, who I'm still very close with, who was a junior executive at ABC at the time, and Stephanie and Jackie, who was Lions then, DeCrinis, but who became a big executive at USA. People go off and do different musical chairs things, but there was a community of people there that I became close with and who demonstrated to me, wow, these people get to hear an idea, decide whether that idea would make a good show, discuss it creatively, the pros and cons, work on the outlines, work on the scripts, go to set, see the whole thing come together, go to the edit bay and make changes to it. Again, not so dissimilar from the playwriting experience that I had. And I thought, yeah, I could grow into that.
So from you grow into that on the studio side, and then you were asked to, or you
there I was on the network side, so I was an assistant to a director of drama at ABC Network, and I spent about 10 years at ABC, and in about the third year got promoted from an assistant desk to being a manager, which is the sort of entry-level executive job, and stayed there, and by the time I left there, myself and Heather Caden were running drama development. So I worked my way up there. I will say the most challenging transition in terms of my career was going from being an assistant to finally getting an executive job. That's, I think, you know, that's probably been the hardest transition, and I think remains challenging for people sometimes.
Well, speaking of transitions, how was the transition from studio into All Access?
So then, yes, cut to, then I worked as a studio executive overseeing drama for a number of years. And what I'm doing now is genuinely exhilarating in the sense that I loved my job at the studio. I did, you know, doing overseeing drama, really delivering projects to CBS Network and the CW. And both of those places have fairly understandable brands, right? You kind of know what a CBS show is. We used to look at it as we were trying to hit a target, and there are caviar versions of CBS shows and delicious hamburger versions of CBS shows. But at the end of the day, you know, they're closed-ended storytelling where usually a case comes in the door, whether it's a doctor show, lawyer show, you know, CSI, what have you, and it closes up by the end of the episode. So in my time working with David's staff and at the studio, I feel like we got pretty good at delivering for CBS and the CW shows that would hit that target. That's incredibly gratifying, you know, just in that it takes the same amount of effort to work on a show that ultimately doesn't connect with viewers and doesn't stay on the air as it does to, you know, work on something where you get to have celebrations when you're in season 5 and 6. So the fact that we became, I think, a very good operation, not 100% success rate, of course, but in terms of delivering those kind of shows was terrific. I'm now at a point in my career where it is thrilling to get to define a new brand, a new platform, a new business venture, because that involves a lot of creative and strategic thinking about the shows, about what our consumer is looking for, about how we want to approach the business model. All those things are open questions. And just at the point where perhaps my learning curve wasn't so steep in the other job, I'm now in a job where I'm in that sweet spot of there are things I know about how to do this job and things that are constant sort of learning curve for me, and I like that. That's ideal.
You're right. And so what, what are some of those challenges and opportunities that surprise you, particularly on the All Access side?
Well, I do think, anytime that you're trying to do something new, you have to galvanize a lot of people who maybe have been doing things a certain way to think of things differently. And I find here at this particular company, my experience has been that most everybody is open to that, but it's a big ship. It's trying to kind of say, well, we understand we're a part of this big ship, but if we're going to compete with other streamers and if we're going to get talent attracted to our service and help people understand what we're trying to do at All Access, it's so competitive out there. We need to, at times, jump 3 steps ahead and be able to create that new business model or make that new co-production or spend the kind of money, for example, that we've needed to spend on discovery to help justify to our subscriber, we're making you pay for our service. We've got to deliver you something that you couldn't find for free somewhere. So that can be challenging. And I think, also just the state of the marketplace. You have to really hustle because people can easily go to Netflix or Hulu or Amazon or other broadcast networks, or, there's a lot of opportunity out there for good projects. So you have to generate a lot. We are utilizing our library of titles, whether it's Twilight Zone or Star Trek, or we have The Stand in early development with Stephen King. You have to be aggressive about finding those things that will attract great talent to you and making the case for the service that, for actors, for, everybody in town, come to us. We will treat your shows well. We will, there's a little bit of a feeling some of these streamers have come and gone, some of the more independent ones, the smaller ones, even ones that generated from companies like ABC, or Disney. So the fact that we have a company that's really standing behind this as really a big part of the future and is putting the resources towards it is allowing us to make that case in a way that we need to get someone like Jordan Peele to say, well, of all the things that I can choose from now with my career, this is the project I want to do.
In terms of, you were just mentioning about, making it more broad, and in terms of viewers for CBS All Access shows and shows that you are looking at, what do you do to go after women, to target women, youth, people with diversity? What are the conscious steps that you're taking to do that?
Really good question. I don't want this to sound sort of like a cop-out, but I do feel like maybe because I'm from one of those groups, my own natural instincts, I think, make that critically important to me. So I mean to say I don't always need to, I think, consciously be targeting projects that are reflective of the actual nature of the culture. I think part of me naturally does that. I will give you a small, sort of story about this issue that is kind of interesting for me because it's come to my own attention within the last couple of years. So when I was the junior person in a room most of the time, and this doesn't matter which company I was at, but there's usually in a pitch meeting or any meeting, there's about 5-10 minutes of chit chat before you get into the meat of what you're there to talk about. And I noticed that sort of earlier in my career, a lot of the chit chat was either about fantasy football leagues, golf, which I don't play, and, that would be fine. I would be in the room. No one would make me feel marginalized because those weren't particular interests of mine. And when we got to the meat of doing what we were going to do, I had enough to contribute, and I was not made to feel awkward about it. However, when I sort of started to become the senior person in the room, I noticed that 10 minutes of chit-chat, and some of the All Access department is here and could vouch for it, that we'll talk about our kids, or we'll talk about, things, I don't know, more relationship-oriented things or emotional things, or things, again, probably selfish in that I'm maybe driving the conversation in a particular direction. But there's an aspect of naturally being who you are and getting to be in the job that invariably, I think, helps define the culture of your division in a particular way. I think it's just incredibly important from a business standpoint as well to incorporate many points of view in the work that you're doing. We would be so short-sighted to think that, if I sit in a meeting, I just want people to confirm my viewpoint. We're trying to create shows that speak to the country, that speak to people on a deeper level. Having a group of people making those decisions that reflects the marketplace is just a good business decision as well. It's incredibly important. It's not like it's like just some altruistic thing. So I think if you look at All Access, we have Good Fight, which was our first show, is set in an African-American law firm. There are, a lot of issues around that, and, the cast is predominantly African-American. I think, we obviously have a female African-American lead in our Star Trek show, and a reflection of a lot of diversity that is also commensurate with the Star Trek universe. I mean, that is part of the original Roddenberry vision as well. We're in business with, on the development side, a wide array of kinds of people. We had recently, we got the cut-in for the last episode of Strange Angel for this season, and a big part of the female lead's journey in this season has been kind of her own awakening in the middle of, being in Pasadena in the 1930s, which was kind of like a repressive culture. And we made sure, as did the producers, that it was a woman directing that final episode, which, is about kind of the liberation of this particular character. So, not just from a female standpoint, but I think, I come to it feeling that for a myriad of reasons, that's incredibly important to have people behind the scenes, and then therefore, on camera reflecting the nature of the world.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you, as you were coming up through the industry, did you have a lot of female mentors? Did you find that, I loved how when you said your first job was with a female exec, so that's fantastic. But were there others, and have you seen a difference in the mentorship change? More females as the years have gone on?
I have had great mentors. I mean, amazing mentors. I would say Nina Tassler was an enormous mentor. I came to this company when she was running drama development for CBS Network. And I really had never experienced anything like Nina, both in terms of her ability at her job, but also her open-heartedness and her spirit in terms of making sure that other people came up, whether it was me or Christina Davis or Laverne McKinnon at the time, or that there were people coming up. She wanted people to grow into her job and take her place. That was her her feeling about it. And she was very generous to me as the person coming in to run the studio side, and she was at the network and had been within the company for a long time. I had just moved over from ABC. She needed to talk me through the most basic things in terms of deal making, and and she had a lot of other things on her plate, but always generous of spirit in that way. And at ABC, Susan Line, also an incredible mentor. I would say David Staff has been an unfailing mentor and friend, and particularly his ability to not sweat the small stuff. He understands that most of us in our jobs put the most pressure on ourselves. So if there's a failure or a shortcoming, he doesn't see it as his job to increase how badly you feel about that. Mm-hmm. He sees it as his job to say, okay, this is the situation, let's figure out how to remedy it. And if ever you bat phone him and say, this is an urgent problem that I have, even though he's got fires coming from, people who work for him all across the company all the time, he will make that issue a priority. So, and in terms of are there more women, that's a bit of a hard thing for me to assess. Mm-hmm. And I have felt within this company, in terms of the executive ranks, I've seen a lot of great women doing great work. I don't know what the numbers are, at any particular place, but I have felt supported. Mm-hmm.
As a manager, how do you keep that sense of being inclusive while maintaining authority, being a manager? And also, what kind of traits do you look for in your team when you're looking to, have someone on your team?
Well, let me think about that for a second. So, authority, that's an interesting word. I think authority generally comes from being honestly respected. I don't think it comes from trying to assert yourself in a particularly aggressive way. That's been my experience. And I look for people who want to carry the ball as far as they can carry it, and then feel comfortable coming to me when they need me. And I think it is truly through that empowerment that you both get the authority that you desire, but also are inclusive. I think there are cultures, corporate cultures, where there's suspicion and politics and competition, that where people are in a job, they're very concerned about holding on to that position, and who gets to communicate with the people above them, and how they're managing up. And I have not seen that in this company, and I don't think that I behave that way as a manager. And I think people respond much more positively when they get to go out on a limb, they get to stretch their talents and abilities, and they also have to own up if the thing doesn't work out the way they want, or if they've sort of driven the car into a wall and they have to figure out, I'm happy to again be there and help, but okay, how do I correct this with the producers, or how do I correct this internally if someone is feeling not comfortable with the way I address the issue? Mm-hmm. So that's and I have had a lot of mentors who have that same kind of approach. Mm-hmm. I look for people who are curious about the world, who have a good sense of humor, who are hardworking, and who, generally speaking, like being in this business, feel that even on the bad days can remind themselves it's a privilege to be in the business and to have the kind of jobs that we do. Some of us were just at Comic-Con, and you see people there who are huge fans of the shows that you're making, and they're just dressed up in homemade costumes that took them a year to make, and are just to be even in the vicinity of Paul Wesley, who is in our new Kevin Williamson show, because they loved him from Vampire Diaries, and they're like, they would never have the opportunity. It just reminds you, or they've planned their entire year-long holiday around going to these events that they feel passionate about because these shows have been so meaningful to them. It's, it sounds probably like a cliche, but I think we feel that actually, and it helps get you through the really stressful times.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for spending your afternoon with us. Julie McNamara, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.